From the Toronto Star, I'm Adrian Chung, and this matters. This is what getting a vaccine in Canada feels like right now. A golden ticket.
Hey, you've got it! You've got the last golden ticket! The kids found the last golden ticket!
Instead of a trip into Willy Wonka's acid-fueled chocolate factory, it's a ticket out of the pandemic.
Run for it, Charlie! Run straight home and don't stop till you get there!
In every province, you're digging through provincial and health region websites to find a vaccine booking. Does your postal code match a hotspot? Then you're sitting in a line, sometimes virtual, sometimes real, for hours, just for a chance to get an appointment. And oh, by the way, sometimes clinics just pop up suddenly, and you're dropping everything to get there in time. The rollout has been frustrating, but if you have gotten a vaccine or found a clinic, there's a good chance you got that information from a Twitter account. Vaccine Hunters Canada. Their vaccine availability updates have been a lifeline for more than 250,000 followers. The whole operation is run by just 4 volunteers whose day jobs aren't in healthcare or government. Today, co-founder Josh Kalpin and director Sabrina Craig join us. Sabrina, Josh, it's a pleasure to meet you. Thank you both for your time.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
The timing of Vaccine Hunters Canada has been so critical because your group came along at a time earlier in the spring when vaccines were becoming more available to a larger population. You know, this is after seniors and frontline healthcare workers were prioritized. And your collective work met this moment. Like, it gave people up-to-date information at the same time that more people needed it. But what gave you this idea in the first place to create a Vaccine Hunters Canada?
So Andrew, who was the creator of Vaccine Hunters, it started with a really simple mission of he was trying to find his dad a vaccine appointment in Toronto. He had a lot of struggles with that for various reasons and eventually was able to book his dad at Sunnybrook Hospital. He is a software developer like myself and we're pretty good with computers. And the fact that this was challenging for someone with that background kind of meant there was a problem to be solved here. So he turned his attention to a website in the States called vaccinehunter.org and thought, hey, we could use something like this in Canada. So that's why he created vaccinehunters.ca, set up the Twitter account, our Discord community server, which for those that don't know what that is, think of a combination of a discussion forum and something like Slack or Microsoft Teams that you may have used at your job. And that's how it got started. And then since then, I was the second person brought on. Same idea, was trying to help my family, and then brought on Sabrina and our other director, Jonathan, and I think the story goes from there.
So basically, Vaccine Hunters was born out of experience, and it was born out of frustration, too, of figuring out this whole process.
It was trying to make it easier for the average Canadian to just get information and get their vaccine. I think out of chaos and frustration, you get solutions and cooperation, and that's kind of what we've seen here.
What I find so remarkable is that vaccine hunting is not your day job. Like you mentioned, you know, you guys have your actual work on top of this. And there are so many sources of information and tips, you know, about city-run clinics, pharmacies, pop-up clinics. How do you stay on top of it all, Sabrina?
So I can speak to the pharmacies. We have really great pharmacy partners. We've spoken in person, had formed partnerships with most of the major pharmacies and their national associations. And we've created a process where they can report to us what they have as their needs, and we are able to post that out there. What we're seeing a lot more of now is that medical clinics, so like a local doctor's office, will be receiving shipments of Moderna nowadays. They ask for us to post that out, and we're able to send that to the larger groups of people. The pharmacists are often people who are highly educated in their fields in pharmacy and usually are really great connecting with their community, but are not necessarily equipped with the tools to broadcast or work with social media to get the word out about their availabilities.
And what about city-run clinics and pop-up clinics, especially the pop-ups? They can just pop up in neighborhoods. How do you get information about that?
The way this, I guess, pop-up madness, we'll call it, kind of works is it actually, taking a step back, when this 18 plus thing got announced, and I think Thorncliffe Park first did this, everyone's eligible in Thorncliffe Park and Flemington Park. That was really what caused, I think, Vaccine Hunters to really take off, and things started to get a little bit crazy. But as part of that, it was hard for us to understand what the eligibility requirements are at some of these pop-ups. And there's one that we will freely admit we completely bungled, Driftwood Community Center in the Jane Finch area, where the eligibility requirements, we heard different things and a million things changed and they weren't ever true. From that chaos, we got a partnership where Michael Garron Hospital and a number of other hospitals reached out to us and said, hey, let's just not have this happen again. And we started working with Michael Garron was the first one, along with UHN through the Team Toronto Mobile Vaccination Task Force. Then we expanded to Humber River Hospital. Scarborough Health Network reached out and said the same thing. Now we have almost every single hospital in the city of Toronto onboarded in some way where we have a contact there, and we either have a formal thing where they send us the clinics in advance, or we just check in with them. And that's how we really find out about a lot of information. And the key thing to note here with these types of things is that we respect the wishes of the clinics, kind of how Sabrina spoke to how the pharmacists are the ones telling us that they have doses and they want us to send people there. We're mindful that we can summon very large mobs of people to appear. Yeah. It's kind of a joke that I summon mobs to places. But I want to preface that when I say mob, I don't mean like an angry riot. I just mean a lot of people showing up at a place and being really excited to get a vaccine.
Well, yeah.
But we're mindful of that, and we don't want to overwhelm the clinics. So that's part of it. The other part is now we have partnerships with different municipalities. Toronto is our big formal one, but we have contacts at York Region, Peel Region, Ottawa, and we're hoping to expand that out more. But they send us information. We verify things with them. We're really working closely with the clinic organizers, and I think that's kind of a new evolution of the organization.
So I would imagine that the sourcing and the verifying information is A, a lot more accurate now, and B, probably you have to do less work because you're getting that information directly from the clinics, from the pharmacies, from the hospitals themselves.
Yes, we also had a small hiccup with Metro pharmacies, which use a booking waitlist queue type system. And someone shared a tip with us saying that Metro has these availabilities. They gave the link that was custom created for them with their booking thing. And then thousands of people clicked the link, and we learned a very valuable lesson. It was only a few weeks later where we actually got to sit down with Metro, and they said, hey, we didn't know, we ran into such an issue with this. It was a very interesting conversation to say, we have all these relationships with all these different national, local pharmacies, and we always encourage people to identify themselves as authorities and give us feedback and grow our partnerships so that we can be on the same team and achieve our overlapping mission.
Yeah, the logistics part of this has been so interesting because the vaccine rollout is getting better, but of course it has not been smooth. And I've heard this frequently from many people, that it is striking that a volunteer-run organization that did not exist a year ago. Of course, you guys have, readily made mistakes, but you have learned from them too. But you guys are doing a better job of communicating vaccine availability and locations compared to what multiple levels of government are doing. Why does it have to be this way? Why does it fall on you to have to do the work?
Let's take a step back. We're looking at this is one of the largest medical rollouts in human history, right? We're taking a vaccine that has been developed really in just over a year, and we're trying to get it into the arms of 30 million plus Canadians. This is unprecedented rollout. So I don't think it's possible to have this be perfect. However, I would say that regardless if it would say hypothetically if this rollout was perfect, I think we would have value. There's something to be said of Canadians helping each other and making sure that community is the one encouraging people to get their vaccines. And the best people to help you are the people that you know. And what we've done really is facilitated that helping and trying to provide as much information as possible to everyone. The other thing to keep in mind is that Canada as a country is such a diverse country, not just in people, but in where people live. So we have Toronto, which is the densest part of the entire country. And then you go look and you have parts of Saskatchewan, Alberta, the territories, Newfoundland, where it's spread out, right? There's parts in Nunavut, you cannot drive into Nunavut. Like, it's so logistically different across the entire country that each public health unit's going to have its own strategy. And as part of that, of course, there's going to be some confusion. Which public health unit am I in? Which information? And we're just trying to distill that down so that people can find as much information as they can and also can self-serve a lot of this information. So a lot of the time, it's really just like basic stuff of like, oh, you actually live in the Porcupine Health Unit or the Northern Alberta Health Unit or things like that. And I think there's real value into that. And that would exist regardless of what's being done on the municipal, regional, provincial, and federal level.
Right. It's clearing up perhaps some of the common confusion things that people just maybe didn't think about so much before all of this, but now they have to know what postal code they are in. They have to know what health region they are in. All of that matters in ways that, again, they may not have had to think about before.
Exactly. And we're also finding that you can provide all the information you want. Unfortunately, sometimes just people don't read, and they just kind of need to be told. Like there are a lot of instances where someone just is like, I don't want to read through this giant website. Just tell me where I need to go. And we also help people like that too. We answer thousands and thousands of Twitter DMs, emails, Facebook messages. We try to get back to every single person we can and have a huge team responding to those. And I think that's what you're seeing. And the government could hire 1 million people to help with the rollout. It still wouldn't be enough to answer all the questions and help people individually.
We definitely make a big effort to reach people where they are. Because of the rollout, there's all sorts of ways that our government's shifting to adjust to the needs. Like in Alberta, even in early April, they had some provisions for allowing 15-year-olds to get vaccinated with Pfizer. Whereas here it's happening, like we have dates that's happening, and it's just a matter of a lot of people really excited, enthusiastic, but really not entirely sure where to go. We also were very proud of our ability to point people and entice people with logistical barriers that they may face. One of the barriers that we face in Ontario is that there's a lot of people who don't feel comfortable taking their work week off or their work day off to get their vaccine. So that's something that we're very, very excited to promote whenever there's an opportunity past 5 p.m., appointments available. That's something that we feel really strongly that people who are excited for vaccines but have structural barriers definitely want to be standing to encourage that.
We'll be right back. You know, the vaccination rollout, it's working its way down the age ranges now. That's true across Canada. Alberta, I believe, is opening up vaccinations to 12 plus. Manitoba's moving eligibility to 18 plus now. And then in Ontario, vaccine bookings are opening up for the big millennial cohort. That's people 30 plus, regardless of postal code on May 17th. So obviously a huge number of people who are now eligible and will have to navigate that system. What tips can you give them? What have we learned over the past few months of vaccine hunting, you think? Josh?
The first thing is, as we always say, is figure out if you have an OHIP card, make sure you have your OHIP card. If you don't have a green one, you will need to call in. If you don't have OHIP at all, there are options, and that's a bit more complicated to explain, and I'll get to that. Let me start with just if you have a health card part, and then we'll talk about if you don't. The Ontario booking website is super easy to use. You enter your postal code, you need your health card number, it validates everything, says you're eligible, and shows you nearby things. That's if your public health unit is using it. If your public health unit isn't, you definitely should figure out where you live. Durham is one that doesn't use the provincial booking website, for instance, in the GTA. London doesn't either. There's a number across the province that don't. and figure out when they're going to open up appointments. For instance, this week, York Region and Durham opened up 40 plus well before the province is going to or did on Thursday mornings. So it's a bit different. That's probably the first major tip. If you're talking in Toronto, specifically, if you're having trouble finding an appointment through the provincial booking website, almost every hospital is opening up eligibility for 40 plus, probably towards the end of this week. Hospitals are a very good option for those that don't have OHIP. If your local public health unit doesn't use the provincial booking website, that also is a very good option if you don't have OHIP. If you have no status or something like that, there's special considerations there and there's specific clinics helping with that. But there shouldn't be a barrier for someone that isn't a permanent resident or citizen of this country to get their vaccine in Ontario. So figure out your local hospital, figure out what public health unit you're in, and figure out if you use the Ontario booking website or something else. And from there, be ready nice and early when the formal date's announced. Recommend getting on the website, not right at 8 a.m. if you're using the provincial one, a little bit before. Be patient. Even if you just get an appointment in June, keep checking back. There's always people canceling or people go to a walk-in clinic and get their vaccine sooner and then cancel. If your appointment's in June and you feel defeated by that, just check back as much as you can on the website. We also post specifically for Toronto every single day around 5 o'clock. We post the availabilities of every mass vaccination site in the city of Toronto as part of our Team Toronto partnership as well.
There are definitely more on the pharmacy side of things. There will be a time where Moderna Pfizer is available in many more pharmacies. When phoning the pharmacies, it's a good idea to ask if they're out of stock right now, when they might expect the next shipment to come in, what type of system they're using for their wait list is also good information to gather. Right now, you can sign up for Rexall as like a pre-sign up, and it'll message you when your eligibility becomes available. So that's something that people can do right now. For everyone else, it's a good idea to also, if you have come to Ontario from another province, if you're in a certain region, you can always bring your rent or mortgage receipt showing that you live in a certain place. We know right now, as of early May, about like 21 to 13% female male of the 30 to 39 group has been vaccinated in Ontario. We expect that number to jump towards the end of the week, as well as when more pharmacies start offering vaccinations in their clinics.
Yeah, I was wondering about that too, because to your point about pharmacies having more shots, whether that be Pfizer or Moderna, I know that Canada is expected to get 2 million doses of Pfizer per week, every week, until the first week of July. That's as we're recording. Of course, you guys are not in charge of policy, but could that help solve some of the almost supply and demand issues that we've seen in the past? Of course, with more vaccinations, hopefully the hunt won't be as difficult?
Yeah, we definitely think more vaccines couldn't hurt. We also think that there's lots of thoughts going into strategically where in Ontario, Canada, they are going to. We definitely know that certain pharmacies or certain towns are in more higher demand for it. But what we position ourselves right now to be is to help people navigate the system and also empower the hunter in the family and to really reach them and get them to get their whole connections. Josh actually has a really interesting story about how one person that they reached out to had their whole family vaccinated off of one post. They grabbed their 3 generations of family and got vaccinated. I think they were in Brampton, Josh?
So Scarborough, we heard there. I don't even think there's a specific story.
There's just been so many of them.
Yeah, I think Scarborough, when they opened, basically said everyone in Scarborough can go book online with these appointments, we saw reports in our community and on Twitter of, I just booked 20 members of my family. I just booked 30 members of my family. I just booked my entire street. When Peel opened 50 Plus for the first time, a friend of mine who lives in Mississauga, I called her and I said, your parents are eligible, so book them right now. I found out a week later I booked the entire street.
Wow.
From that. So what you're seeing is this, no pun intended, but virality of this, where one person helps out huge clumps of people. And we recognize we can't reach everyone. That's just not possible. We can't, like, if someone doesn't use social media that's not really our job. Our job isn't to do radio ads or newspaper ads or things like that. But our job is to reach the people that are connected and that can help as best they can. And it's exponential growth on how many people are helping each other.
What does that feel like to see people in real time and online saying, because I saw the post that you guys put up, the information that Vaccine Hunters shared, that I got my family vaccinated, that I got vaccinated. They're posting pictures of themselves getting vaccinated because of information you gave. What does that feel like?
Oh, it's incredibly rewarding. It's like, it feels like at the beginning when it was like over 55, it felt like, okay, when a certain portion of that population gets vaccinated, then they'll shift down to the next one, and then the next one, and then the next one. And we're just seeing that now friends who they felt like weeks away from being vaccinated, they're getting vaccinated, and it's so nice to see.
Yeah. Josh?
There's just been so much. Like, I think when asked what does it feel like, I think there's a sense of pride in that we've done so much. I think there's individual moments where it's hit, like where it's like, holy crap. I think the Scarborough thing, where we're seeing 10,000 vaccinations being done a day in Scarborough, the Gen X boom, we'll call it, where 40 plus could do AstraZeneca before that all got shut down. Even just this past week, I got the last family member done, like last person in my immediate family. And I kind of just was like, whoa. I think the thing that we've provided the country with, besides information, is hope. And we've had a miserable year, over a year. There's been a lot of helplessness going on. And I think we finally have something that we can tell everyone to do that is not just like anxious thinking, staying inside, trying to avoid people to avoid getting sick. For those that can't stay inside, it's even worse. But the public health guidelines, basically. But we've given people something to do that is helpful, meaningful, makes them happy, and gives them purpose. And that's really powerful. And it's hard to really put it into words how powerful it is. But there's something magical about it.
Sabrina, Josh, thank you so much for your time. And I know on behalf of so many Canadians that have gotten their shots through the information that you're giving, we really do appreciate your work.
Thank you, and thank you for letting us on here. It's a pleasure to share our story.
Thanks for having me.
And that is Josh Kalpin, co-founder of Vaccine Hunters Canada, alongside Sabrina Craig, a director with Vaccine Hunters Canada. That's it for today. Thanks for listening. This Matters is hosted and produced by me, Adrian Chung, Saba Aitazaz, and Raju Muthar. Produced and mixed by Sean Pattinen, and our director of programming is JP Fozo. Our show theme music is by So Called, and our episode music is by Mike DeAngelis. We want to hear what stories matter to you. Please send us comments, questions, or ideas to thismatters@thestar.ca. Please consider supporting the journalism the Toronto Star newsroom does at thestar.com. And don't forget to subscribe to This Matters on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. Let's talk soon.